So I was in the Bible Belt. I didn't have a lot of experience with that because I was Spanish speaking, but there were a few people that I contacted on the street, as well as some of the Hispanics that were very intense into their intensely devote to their beliefs. And I think you could easily get provoked and end up in a contentious experience if you weren't careful. And for me, I really was determined not to have contention and be able to still have the Spirit in those experiences. So I have a couple experiences that come to mind. One was just a guy that we ran into in an apartment complex. He was telling us all the reasons why our church couldn't be true, basically. But in the form of questions. He was asking us questions, but not really wanting to know the answer. He just wanted to get us to admit that we were wrong. And my companion got provoked by it and argued with him. And it didn't really help the situation. And so I really wanted to be able to bring the Spirit to the situation. And so I was just praying inside to be able to have the Spirit with me and be able to just testify to him with the Spirit. And so he was saying things about how we didn't have black leaders in the church and things like that. And he was saying something about the prophet. I don't remember. But I remember praying and then just saying to him, just testifying to him, I know that the prophet is a prophet of God. I know that from God. And so it's not something that's my opinion, or it's not something that people have just told me, but it's something that I know from God. And that's what we teach people, that they can know that the prophet is a prophet of God. They can know that from God himself through prayer. And I just remember saying something like that. And it was just amazing how the Spirit testified to him and softened his heart. And by the end of that conversation, he invited us to lunch. And at first he had been attacking us and did not want to hear what we had to say at all. But because of the Spirit, and I also prayed for charity in my heart because it was very hard to have it in that moment. But because I prayed for that, God granted me charity. And by the end, his heart was changed. We didn't go to lunch with him. We just ended on a good note like that. But I knew that the Spirit had brought that change. So there was one other experience like that where in a Spanish lesson, and the guy was doing the same thing, asked us questions, not giving us a chance to answer. And he really just wanted to prove us wrong and make us doubt our faith. Particularly concerning Joseph Smith, the restored gospel type of thing. And I was doing the same thing. I was just praying. I felt frustrated with him, but I was praying that I could have charity for him and praying for the gift of charity. And then I also was praying for the gift of tongues because he was speaking really fast, very intense, and I didn't know how to get a word in. And I knew that to make my point strong, I needed to be able to speak Spanish very well, very confidently and quickly in that moment. So I prayed for those gifts, and the phrase had just come into my mind. The phrase had come into my mind, you shall not be confounded before men. And many times before my mission, when people had tried to provoke us, I had just let it go. But this time, the Spirit told me that I would not be confounded if I opened my mouth. And so I chose to open my mouth, and the gifts came. I felt the Spirit so strongly, and I spoke Spanish better than I had spoken it all day that day. It came out, and I told him pretty much the same thing. I told him, we're not telling our opinion. We're not here to discuss opinions. We're here to tell you what we know is true. And we know it from God. And we know that this church is true. And it confounded him. For a minute there, he didn't know what to say. And that strengthened my testimony that God will keep his promises. When the Spirit tells us to open our mouth, we have to open it. And if we make that choice, we will not be confounded before men. And we can leave someone with a feeling of the Spirit, not feeling angry that we didn't agree with them, but a feeling that we can teach okay, we can teach with power and authority if we choose to, and God will back us up. So